Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is Philip Cogom. Welcome to Tea with the Druid 241, presented to you by the Order of Bards, Hervates and Druids, and broadcasting to you from two locations, Palma and Majorca. Well, not Palma, Majorca, the island of Majorca, in a little mountain village with a mountain covered in snow just over there. And that's where I am. And I have guests sitting by a cozy, warm fire in England. So lovely to see you. Who we got? We've got people from Southern California, London, Warrington, Norwich, Netherlands, Ontario. Great, fantastic, lovely to see you. So good to see you. So as everyone gathers, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Kerry for having done the tea last week. That was really good of you, Kerry. That was wonderful. And Francis in Finland, and Zilly in Lincoln, and Lisa in Ohio, and Erin in Denver. Great to see you. Well, as you know, with these teas, we imagine that we're gathering in a circle around the fire, in a circle in the forest. And even though we're all in our different locations around the world, there's a way in imagining that we're sitting around a fire has a power in itself. And when we kind of sink into that awareness, we start to get that wonderful feeling of warmth and human connection that comes when we sit in physical reality around a fire. But it also comes to us when we imagine that we're doing that. And who knows, perhaps we are really in another realm. So, on another plane of existence. So, over the years, the Order of Bards, Hervates and Druids has come into contact with a number of different charities and organizations that work to do good in the world. And we've developed certain ties and contacts with a number of them. And because Druids are in love with trees, and trees are so important to Druids, most of those charities are related to trees in some way. And for a long time, a lovely herbalist used to live in a little gnome house we have at the bottom of our garden with her carpenter partner and their little baby, Oren. And they lived in our garden for several years and then moved on to slightly bigger premises. And that was Anna Richardson. And she, together with colleagues, started a number of years ago an absolutely fantastic project called the Children's Forest. And another important kind of goal for us in Druidry is somehow working towards making the world a better place for children, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. And with the Children's Forest project, these two ideas of fostering tree planting and reverence for nature and making the world a better place for the next generation come together. And I would now like to invite Anna and Erica, who work for Children's Forest, to join me by pressing this button here. And there they are, as if by magic. Hello, Anna and Erica.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hello,
Thank
lovely
you.
to see you. Fantastic to see you. And how lovely to see that fire warming you behind there. And tell me, I've introduced a little bit your project. Tell us more about the Children's Forest. How did it first start? What gave you the idea in the first place?
Well, I think it, yeah, thank you, Philip. It's a lovely thing to be here with you and be with everybody else as well. Thank you for having us here at Tea with the Druid. We've got our cups of tea and our fire.
Fantastic. Yes,
and the forest is in our hearts, so all is well. Yeah, and I think thinking about your little tale, it was actually Oren, my little son, when I started taking him to the forest group, when he was maybe 2 or 3, and that started me off on the path of being a forest school teacher. So I dived into that world and have been taking children to the forest ever since, and just really feel so moved to sit around the fire and, you know, make shelters and just be in that space with children and of all ages and families. And Erica and many of the people on our team have, you know, come from the forest school, I guess from the place of working with children in the forests. And the Children's Forest Project really has grown out of that practice of the love for the forest and being in an actual existing forest with the children, and then really wanting to give back something to nature and to get involved in planting forest as well. So it has naturally emerged as the obvious thing to do. You know, I think it's just when you're there and you're making acorn bread with the children and doing all these things, then you think, oh, well, it just makes sense to plant the acorns and grow the oaks. And this way that is so natural, and I'm sure it was part of our ancestral way to, you know, appreciate the gifts we're receiving from the trees and want to help them in return. So yeah, it really emerged from that, and then of setting up the Children's Forest as approaching landowners and saying, hey, you know, would you be interested in having a children's forest on your land? And so within the project of the Children's Forest, we spend time in nature and we do nature connection in existing forests and do our forest school practice. And then we've woven it into a journey that we go on them with them, of having time in amongst the trees and really building that heart connection with the trees and the animals and that environment, and then going to the land where we're going to plant and imagining a bright future, imagining those future forests, and then going back. So the project is set up to be a future generational project. So Children's Forest really, although it's about the children planting the trees, we tell them this is actually about the children of all the species. It's all Mother Nature's children. So the Children's Forest is going to be a place for the children of the trees, you know, the children of the oaks and the willows, and a place for the children of the mushrooms and the mosses and all the animals too, and the fox cubs and so on. And we just, so they get to understand that they're part of something and part of Mother Nature's family, and that it's such a wonderful way to do the future generational thinking with them too, because of course you plant a tree and with all best tending and care, that tree will, you know, be in its, you know, adult life when we're long gone, and the children are told, you know, you may come back here with your children and your grandchildren, and this tree will be here in many generations time. And so that's really the vision, is for that long-term future. And one of the things that we feel is also so important is the power of the imagination, and that has been in some ways neglected for the children these days. So we weave that very much into the fabric of how we bring the Children's Forest. And I think I'll just hand over to Erica to explain a little bit more about how we bring imagination in with the children for this project.
Thank you, Anna. Imagination is a really key part of our planting process, and because for anything to happen, it needs to be imagined first. So we really try and connect the children with the power of imagination and the power of holding something in our hearts and then helping that to happen. And one of the ways that we do this is through story. And story is a really fundamental way for humans to understand how to be in the world and how the world is, and to understand our place in it. And it feels like in these times particularly, children hear a lot of fairly negative stories about the future. And so we feel it's really important to share stories with children where we speak about the possibility of a bright future, and a future that can provide home and shelter and food for all of Mother Nature's children. And also stories in which humans have a role as a beneficial species, because often we hear that humans have a negative effect on the earth. And for a very long time, we've been here as the guardians of nature and the guardians of the earth. So we're really hoping to install in children that we have the power of imagination and we can have a really positive impact in our world. And one of the ways we do that is through story, and we tell the children a story about how a long time ago Mother Earth dreamt her children into being, and the tree children and the grass children and the bird children and the children of the animals all came, and the forest grew. And then the humans arrived and we came to the forest. And when we arrived, the trees looked after us and they gave us food and they gave us shelter, and there was clean air and clean water, and the people learnt from the animals and from the trees and the birds, and we lived in harmony together for a long time. And that is our birthright. That's our ancestral truth. And then we speak about the time of forgetting, when humans, we forgot that we're in reciprocal relationship with nature, and so we began to take more than we were given. And as that continued, things became unbalanced. And that brings us to where we are now, where we're noticing that things aren't in balance in the world around us and sometimes inside ourselves. And so the people began to ask, what can we do to restore balance? And what can we do to feel really good about the way that we are in the world? And in this story, the children spend time with the trees, and they remember that the trees have always been our friends and that they've looked after us for a long time. And it's time for us to begin to take care of the trees. And so the children begin to gather the tree seeds that they find in the forest, and they plant them in the ground with their wishes for a future. And their wishes that the trees will grow tall, and that the air will be clean, and that the water will be clear, and the animals will live in the forests again. And as the children plant the trees, many other people join in and they plant together, and these are the children's forests. And then we take the story into the future, to a time when there is harmony again, and where the people and the animals and the trees are all living in balance. And so it feels really important to speak about the balance and wisdom that our ancestors have lived in, and to really hold in our hearts the possibility of a really bright, beautiful, balanced future for the generations that are to come of all of the species. And so we tell the children this story, and then we go to the place where we're going to plant our children's forest.
Can I ask you something, Erica? When you're telling them the story, do they tend to close their eyes, or do they tend to listen with wide-eyed as you tell the story?
Oh, thank you. So when we tell this story, what we do is we sit in a circle, and in the middle of the circle, we have a candle, which is representing a fire, and we've collected lots of sprigs of trees. And so actually, before we tell the story, we plant the sprigs in the ground, and we plant a mini forest all together.
Oh, how
and
sweet.
It's really, yeah, we plant a little forest, and we speak about the gifts of the different trees as we plant them. And then as we're telling the story, we give the children a piece of clay each. And so as we're speaking, the children craft the animals and the people and the birds. And so they're using their hands to create the animals that are going to live in the forest. And then as they're speaking, they put their animals into the forest.
That's a lovely idea too, that it seems to me in a way that they might be able, it might sink in more if they're making something with their hands as the story is being told. That's really lovely. How fantastic. But sorry, I interrupted you. You carry on.
No, it's fine. Thank you. That was a wonderful question. And yeah, I think you're really right. I think having something to do with your hands is a really helpful way, especially for children, to be able to listen and let things come in a more gentle, sort of organic way.
We've already got, they want to, Franklin is saying he wants to go to this school. I think you'd have lots of grown-ups joining in with you.
Great.
That's great. We're all children as well, let's face it.
Yeah, we're all the children of the earth. So it is for the children, and we are all of the children. And in fact, if you'd like to join in, maybe we could in this moment. So what we also do with the children is, before we go to the planting site where we're going to plant the trees, and before we plant the trees, we sit down and we take a moment to imagine the forest that we're going to plant way into the future. And at this point, the children have spent time in the mature forest and felt that kinship with nature, and they've heard the story about our path through time. And so then we take a moment to do a visualization together. So if you'd like to join.
Yes, please do. We'd love that.
Great. So if you just take a moment to feel really comfortable where you're sitting or standing maybe, and just feel your weight being held, and close your eyes. And just for a moment, imagine the feeling of your bare feet on the forest floor. Perhaps there's moss or soil under your feet. Maybe you can feel the leaves the trees have let go of, and the dampness of the earth. Feel the breeze on your skin. And as you look around, notice how the light is coming through the trees. And look around you. And do you see any animals? What else do you see in this forest? You can hear the sound of birdsong far away, and birds close to you. And you can also hear the sound of a trickling brook somewhere in the forest. So carefully, gently on your bare feet, make your way through the forest until you find the stream. And it is the clearest, sweetest stream you've ever seen. You could bend down and dip your hands or maybe even your mouth into the water and take a sip of this clean water. And feel the cool crystal water running down your throat, nourishing you from inside. And for a moment, take the whole of the vibrant living forest into your being. Breathe it in, smelling the earth and the clear air. And now you could wiggle your toes. Take a breath, and when you feel ready, open your eyes again. And I wonder how you feel now after having that moment in the forest.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you so much. What I love is this piece of information that says that the nervous system can't distinguish between imagination and reality. Hence, in a negative sense, you have the problem with PTSD, for instance, of when you have incredibly stressful events and you relive them and your body reacts accordingly and so on. But in a positive sense, it means that when you imagine, for instance, a scene that you imagined then, some of the positive effects that you would get if you were really there physically still occur in your body. So that's tremendous news, because it means I was asked this question by somebody on a podcast the other day who has numerous allergies and isn't able to go outside much, if at all. And how can they develop nature connections if they can't actually get out into nature? And so I spoke to him about this particular fact that has emerged from neuroscience. So it shows to me that an exercise like that you're doing with the children, that you've just done with us so beautifully, has more. It obviously has a sort of creative value. It calms people, and it sort of stimulates one's creativity and abilities to visualize and so on. But it's also affecting the body as well, and the emotional self. So that's fantastic.
Well, that's
tell
wonderful.
me, yeah. So tell me about. So you're doing this with. So in practice, give me an example of a children's forest project. How does it start? Just kind of run me through that.
So I'll have a little go at sharing a little bit about that. So this whole process will go consecutively over a process of several days that we're working with a group of children. So we'll start spending time in the woods together and doing forest immersion, basically, and then we'll go to the site where we're going to plant and do the visualization, and we do art and different poetry as well. We might read you one of the children's poems later. So that is about activating that future generational view. We're encouraging like 7 generational thinking of this place where we're going to plant. So that is the second step of the journey, and then the third step is the planting. So when we arrive on planting day, in the way that we plant a children's forest, we were actually really inspired by one of the children that we work with in one of our groups, who one day said, we were just walking up the hill and we were talking about we're going to do our tree planting, and he turned and said, I think we should plant it as a sacred grove. It's like, yes, of course we should. It was just brilliant. That was Lucian. I just credit Lucian for that. And so what we do with our children's forest plantings is it's a very kind of certain setup where we have in the center of the planting site a fire circle, and that fire is the children's fire. And some of you might have heard of it's an ancient pledge. I think it comes from the Native American people, and Matt McCartney has written a book called The Children's Fire. And really it's this idea of putting the children at the center of all our decision making and at the center of all our councils. So we tell the children, this is a children's fire, and we spark the children's fire. And then around that space, we write our wishes for the future generations on a little birch scroll. So each of the children get to write their wish around the fire, and then we read them out. So when we do the planting, which is, we place the trees in a circle going out from the fire. So that fire circle will be there as the trees grow up and the children return each time. And they're planted in the cardinal directions and the cross quarters, so that we can always, remember in our ceremonies where those directions are as well. And then they plant their trees with their wish. So they plant their little saplings and they put their little scroll in the ground and plant their wish for the future. And that's how we do our planting. And then once planting has kind of finished for the day, then we all gather. And this is something lovely, because actually this came from you, Philip, because one day when I saw you, you gave me a little book on sacred groves from OBOD, book about sacred groves. And in the back of that book is a beautiful blessing, a Druid blessing. And I've in this moment I've forgotten who it was who wrote it. Mara Freeman, maybe. Mara Freeman, exactly. And we read that out to the trees that we planted, and then we all have a dance. So music's a very important part of it. We play whistles and drums, and sometimes our friends come with bagpipes, and then we dance the trees in, and we say to them, we've got to call in, call up the worms and help Mother Earth to welcome the roots of the trees, but also to bring in the elementals and the fairies to help the trees grow. So we have a big dance, and then we gather around and we sing a special tree blessing song that we've now sing to all the children's forest whenever we're there. So when we return, we always sing this blessing song as well to them. So we do really plant it as in a ceremonial way, and with a lot of love and care to do that in a way that feels really meaningful for the children. So when we return to that forest over sessions to come, we always remember, light the fire, remember our wishes, and have more wishes perhaps, and go through that, touch on all that process again. So that's essentially how we do it. And I just thought it'd be lovely if you wanted to share something about the sacred groves in Druidry and what might be similar about that, or I don't know, just be lovely to hear from you about the sacred groves in Druidry.
Well, how fantastic! Lovely to hear that, and I love the the idea of little Lucian, a little Druid boy, saying, "I think we should plant this like a sacred grove." That's and that's tremendous, and of course that's exactly what we suggest to people, that when they're planting a sacred grove, they visualize it first, and then and then planted. So I mean, your work is so aligned with what we do. It's just absolutely lovely and wonderful. And I suppose, you know, what we try to do with OBOD, as you probably know, is we try to give guidelines and suggestions and then not be too prescriptive, because people's circumstances and people's inclinations and interests vary so widely. So we have a little booklet, the Sacred Grove Planting Program, which, you know, over 30,000 of those have been printed and gone all over the world, and people have planted groves all over the world being inspired by that booklet. But let me, I'm so interested in what you do. I wanted, so when we went and saw you, you have a sort of place at Emerson College, don't you? They let you use an area where you have a tree nursery.
Yes. Yeah, so that's, yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, yes, that's a kind of a branch of Children's Forest, if you like. So Children's Forest can be planted just as we've spoken about, as in that way. And then another element that we practice with the children that we work with, which, you know, people could also work with, is that we have Forest from Seed project, a children's forest from seed. And that project is about us spending time in the woods with the children, and through the autumn term, when the different trees are offering their fruits and nuts and berries and so on, we have a session on one tree, and we'll tell a story about it and sing a song to the tree and gather the nuts, say, and then we'll make some food out of it and talk about the uses and make a craft of some kind. And then at the end of that day, we plant the seeds. So we're bringing in this sacred reciprocity, really, which is obviously just a natural way of being. That's what all the animals do. And then those tree seeds that germinate go into the tree nursery. So it's been wonderful, actually. So last year we had 800 or more little saplings that have been grown from seed by the children that we work with, that then went out into different children's forests around the country. So it's a really wonderful project. So actually, if anybody is a grower and is really passionate and interested about planting trees and having a nursery and how to work with children around that, you know, that's another project that we are weaving into the children's forest. And it feels really important that the children understand, you know, the trees from seed all the way to mature, majestic, you know, ancient beings. And that's, so that, again, it's intergenerational. So we bring in, this idea of actually understanding all the different parts of it.
That's lovely. And didn't you did a tea with a Druid about 6 months ago or 9 months ago, I can't remember when. And there's a rather nice story. Somebody who was watching it was so inspired. They came. Have they started a project in the States or?
Oh, not yet. Yes, that's Sally. Sally Willow Wren. I'm going to call her. I can't remember her surname. Hello, Sally, if you're watching this. So bless her. She came all the way from New Mexico. She has her own nature school called Sol out in New Mexico. Works with children and communities out there. She got really inspired by the Children's Forest and came out to our training. So we also offer trainings for people who work with children. And she came twice, actually. So she came on the training and then she came and helped on a planting project. She hasn't yet started a children's forest in New Mexico, but I just don't doubt that's going to happen. She's one of these people who makes things happen. And apparently we've got someone signing up from Australia who's coming through the OBOD connection as well. So that's really wonderful.
Isn't that fantastic? And I know River Jones, who runs our wonderful celebrancy training, the School of Celebrancy, which is part of OBOD. She's very much involved in the Children's Forest project. In fact, a proportion of the funds from the School of Celebrancy go to the Forest project. And she's involved in singing with you tree songs. Tell us about the tree song. You mentioned it briefly, but say a little bit more about the tree songs.
So yes, that's a lovely part of the project, which is that we call it the Song Forest. So there's lots now of different songs that have been created or maybe listened to, hopefully, in celebration of the trees. So we have an oak song and a willow song and lots of different songs for the different trees. And River's been really important catalyst and composer of the tree songs with us. And yeah, it's wonderful. So yeah, we're also really encouraging anybody who has got tree songs, celebration of tree songs, to share them with us, and we will then share them. It's on the website, so you can go and see the Song Forest and go and listen to some of those songs, and they are really for singing our appreciation to the trees. Yeah,
that's fantastic, and you've written a book called The Children's Forest, haven't you? A wonderful book full of material about the trees, and with some, I think, some songs in there too, aren't there? And
yes, actually, a lot of the tree songs are in there. I mean, the Children's Forest book preceded the project, the planting project, actually. So it's not specifically about planting trees, the Children's Forest, but it more is. It's a journey of celebration, imagination, creativity in the forest with the children throughout the season. So it's laid out in the 8 main festivals of the year, starting at Imbolc. And I guess it's a ceremony that you would do with children, with a story and a craft and things like that.
That's fantastic, because I know there are many members of the order and people interested in Druidry who also want to see how they can kind of share their spiritual approach and their love of Druidry and of the trees with their children, but not wanting to kind of proselytize or and this is a lovely way to do this, and a lovely connection that I'm going to see if I can sort of help weave together is I work on another project called the ACER integration project, working on psychological integration for adults, using the trees as and the eightfold wheel of the year as ways of achieving psychological integration. And it's so wonderful to see how more and more we're understanding the gifts that the trees can bring us at sort of every level, from the physical right way through to the spiritual. So how does if somebody wants to find out more, what should they do if they want to explore more of your work? There's the book, so they just Google The Children's Forest, Anna Richardson, tap it into the internet, and
the book is available through Hawthorne Press, so that's pretty easy to remember.
And there's loads of seasonal activities and crafts and stories and songs in that book. So yeah, if you do want to share your love of trees with children, it's perfect. That's a really wonderful for support.
Somebody, Emma Tokyo, has given the Children's Forest tree songs on a SoundCloud link. That's great.
Yeah, so we've got a website, and our website is in the process of becoming more beautiful. That hasn't quite happened yet. But if you visit our website, there is a link to the SoundCloud, so you can find the Song Forest. Emma's put there, and Emma's put our website. Thank you, Emma, in the chat. So on our website, you can see. So we run courses. So as Anna said, we do facilitator training courses. So if you work with children in nature and you feel like you'd like to plant a children's forest, then come and join us. And our vision is to expand and for there to be children's forests everywhere. So we'd love for there to be more and more children's forest facilitators to go and see this project all over the world. So wherever you live, we'd really love this to spread really far and wide. And we do some day courses in various things. And
land. So crucially, if you have land and just feel really lit up by the idea of hosting a children's forest on your land, we never own the children's forest, they're for the future generations, but let us know, because really it needs this project needs good guardians. It needs good land guardians who really feel committed to what the project is about. So let us know, or tell your friends if they have land and might be interested, and we can help make it happen.
And if you'd like to stay in touch and hear about what we're up to, we send a newsletter out on each of the 8 festivals. So if you go to our website, you could sign up to the newsletter, and we put things in Facebook and Instagram world as well to
Hurrah.
keep in touch with us.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much, both of you. It's been fantastic. What I'm going to encourage you to do is when I finish the broadcast, don't go away, because the only way you can see all the comments aggregated is to stay in the green room where they're all aggregated. So when I say goodbye, I'm going to magically slide you out of the way. And well, I don't have to. No, we can all say goodbye together. We'll say goodbye to everybody. And thank you all for being in this Tea with the Druid. Thank you, Erica and Anna. That was absolutely wonderful. I'm sure we'll see you again on Tea with the Druid. But lots of love to everybody. Have a wonderful week. And I hope you enjoyed this evening. And if you're watching the recording, I hope you've enjoyed the recording of this. And see you next Monday at 8 o'clock. Okay, lots of love. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you,
everyone.
Philip. Ooh, the button isn't working.